Admiral Kralvex stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the main screen. His forearms were crossed behind his back as he smiled with satisfaction. After 6 months of traveling through space, his fleet had finally reached their target. 200 warships floated in the darkness around Earth. Each ship was as big as a small city, covered in heavy armor and weapons that could destroy entire planets. The Thaxian Empire had used these same ships to conquer 47 different worlds. Earth would be number 48. Sir, we are now in position around the human planet, reported his second-in-command, a tall alien with green skin and 6 eyes. All ships are ready for attack. Kralvex nodded slowly. The intelligence reports about this world had been very clear. Humans were a young species that had only recently learned to fly between planets. They had no real military, no advanced weapons, and no idea that other intelligent life existed in the galaxy. This would be the easiest conquest in Thaxian history. Open a communication channel to the planet, Kralvex ordered. Let us give these primitives a chance to surrender before we destroy them. On Earth, Lieutenant Commander Kim Day sat in a chair inside a hidden space station, orbiting high above the planet. The station was invisible to most sensors, hidden behind advanced technology that made it look like empty space. Around him, dozens of men and women in blue uniforms worked quietly at their computer screens. "Sir, we are receiving a message from the alien fleet," said Ensign Park Min, a young woman with short black hair. She looked nervous but tried to hide it. "Put it on the main screen," Day replied calmly. The face of Admiral Kralvex appeared on the large screen at the front of the room. He had dark red skin, forearms, and teeth that looked like they could bite through metal. When he spoke, his voice was deep and threatening. "Humans of Earth," Kralvex announced. "I am Admiral Kralvex of the Thaxian Imperial Fleet. Your world has been chosen for conquest by our great empire. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. If you do not surrender, we will destroy your cities one by one until you beg for mercy. This is your only warning." The communication ended, leaving the human control room in silence. Several of the younger officers looked scared, but Kim Day remained perfectly calm. He stood up slowly and walked to the communication station. "Send our standard first contact response," he told Parkman. "Tell them we received their message and ask them to wait while we prepare our reply." "That's all, sir?" Parkman asked, surprised. "Shouldn't we be evacuating the cities or calling for help?" Day smiled slightly. "Just send the message, Ensign. Everything is going according to plan." On the Thaxian flagship, Admiral Kralvex received the human response with confusion. The message was polite and calm, asking him to wait patiently while Earth prepared its response. There was no panic, no begging, no immediate surrender. This was not the reaction he expected from a primitive species facing overwhelming force. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "I'm detecting some strange energy readings from around our fleet." Kralvex walked over to look at the sensor displays. There were indeed unusual energy patterns showing up on their instruments, but nothing that looked like weapons or ships. "Probably just solar radiation or magnetic fields from their planet," he said dismissively. "These humans don't have the technology to hide anything from our sensors." Meanwhile, in a secret base built inside the moon, Major Han Woo-jin watched the alien fleet through powerful telescopes. He was a short man with serious eyes and gray hair, who had been preparing for this day for over 2 years. "All shadow units, this is Control," he spoke into his headset. "The fish have taken the bait. Begin Phase 1 of the welcome party." Throughout the solar system, hidden human forces began to move. Ships that had been disguised as asteroids started. Their engines, space stations that looked like empty metal debris, began charging their weapons. Thousands of small fighter craft that had been invisible to alien sensors started preparing for battle. Back on the Thaxian flagship, Admiral Kralvex was growing impatient. The humans had asked for time to prepare their response, but how long? Could it take for primitives to admit defeat? He decided to make another communication. "Humans," he announced, "your time is running short. I see no signs that you are preparing to surrender. Perhaps you need a demonstration of our power." turned to his weapons officer. Target their largest city and prepare to fire a warning shot near their planet. But as his crew prepared to attack, something impossible happened. The space around his fleet began to shimmer and ripple like water. Slowly, shapes began to appear, where there had been empty space just moments before. "Sir, his sensor operator shouted in panic. "I'm detecting multiple contacts all around us. Ships are appearing everywhere." Thousands of small human spacecraft materialized around the Thaxian, fleet-like ghosts becoming solid. They were sleek and fast, moving in perfect formation around the much larger alien warships. Admiral Kralvex stared in shock as he realized he was completely surrounded. His easy conquest had just become something else entirely. Admiral Kralvex stared at his tactical screen in disbelief. The space around his mighty fleet was now filled with thousands of small human ships. They moved like a swarm of insects around his massive warships, darting between them with impossible speed and precision.
"How
"Many ships are out there," he demanded from his sensor officer. "Over 5,000 contacts, sir," came the nervous reply. "They're all around us. I don't understand how they stayed hidden from our scanners." Kralvex laughed, despite his surprise. These human ships were tiny compared to his warships. Each of his vessels was 50 times larger than the biggest human craft he could see. "They're like gnats attacking elephants," he said to his crew. "Prepare all weapons. Let's swat these insects." Commander Lee Jiho sat in the cockpit of his small fighter, watching the alien ships through his helmet display. He had been training for this moment for 3 years, ever since Earth's deep space sensors first detected the approaching fleet. His hands moved smoothly over the controls as he spoke into his radio. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Lead," he said calmly. "Remember what we practiced. Target their weapon systems first, then their engines. You want to disable them, not destroy them." "Copy that," Phoenix led, came the reply from Lieutenant Nam Soo-jin, flying beside him. "These big ships look scary, but they move like sleeping whales." Jiho smiled at her comment. The alien warships were indeed impressive, but they were built for fighting other large ships, not swarms of fast fighters. It was like trying to kill flies with a hammer. On the Thaxian flagship, Kralvex watched as his gunners tried to target the human fighters. The small ships were too fast and too many. Every time his weapons locked onto one target, 3 more appeared from different directions. "Fire everything," he ordered. "Show these primitives the power of the Thaxian Empire." Massive plasma cannons opened fire, sending bright beams of energy across space. But the human pilots seemed to know exactly where each shot would go before it was fired. They twisted and turned through the weapon's fire like they were dancing, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. Lieutenant Choi Subin monitored the battle from her stealth ship, hidden among the asteroids near Mars. Her job was to watch how the aliens fought and send information to the human pilots. Had been studying Thaxian battle tactics for months, using captured data from their previous conquests. "All units, this is Observer 1, she transmitted. "Enemy is using Formation 7 Alpha. They will concentrate fire on Sector 4 in 10 seconds. The human fighters immediately scattered from Sector 4 just as a dozen alien weapons focused their fire on that exact spot. The aliens were firing at empty space, while the humans regrouped for their next attack. "Impossible," Kralvex shouted as he watched his perfectly coordinated attack hit nothing. "How do they know our attack patterns?" His question was answered when the first wave of human torpedoes struck his flagship. The small missiles should have bounced harmlessly off his ship's shields, but instead they passed right through, as if the shields weren't there at all. Explosions rocked the bridge as the ship's main weapon systems went offline. Red warning lights flashed everywhere as damage reports flooded in from all over the ship. "Shields are still at full power, sir," his engineer reported in confusion, "but somehow their weapons are getting through," Captain Yoon Sora commanded. The human attack from her ship, hidden behind Jupiter's largest moon. She watched the battle through multiple screens, each showing a different part of the fight. Her calm voice could be heard on every human communication channel. All units, the enemy is adapting faster than expected, she announced. Switch to pattern Delta. Make them think we're retreating, then hit them from behind. The human fighters suddenly pulled back from the alien fleet, making it look like they were running away. Admiral Kralvek saw this and felt a moment of relief. They're retreating, he called out to his crew. Pursue them. Don't let any escape. But as his ships moved forward to chase the humans, they fell directly into a trap. More human ships appeared, from behind asteroids and space debris, attacking the alien fleet from directions they hadn't expected. What looked like a retreat was actually a carefully planned ambush. Sergeant Park Hyunwoo led a group of fighters in the second wave of attacks. His ship was equipped with special electronic warfare equipment that could confuse alien computer systems. As he flew past a large Thaxian cruiser, he activated his jamming devices. This is for studying us without permission, he muttered, as the alien ship's weapons suddenly stopped working. All across the alien fleet, ships found their systems failing in ways that made no sense. Weapons that had worked perfectly for decades refused to fire. Navigation computers gave false readings. Even simple communication systems started malfunctioning. What's happening to our ships? Kralvex demanded as his own bridge systems flickered and sparked. I don't know, sir, his chief engineer replied helplessly. It's like their weapons are designed specifically to counter our technology. The truth was exactly that. Earth scientists had been studying pieces of Thaxian technology. For 2 years, ever since they captured a damaged scout ship, they knew exactly how alien systems worked and had built weapons designed to exploit their weaknesses. As more of his fleet fell silent, Admiral Kralvex began to understand that he wasn't fighting primitives. He was fighting an enemy that had been preparing for this battle long before he ever arrived. Admiral Kralvex watched in growing horror as half of his mighty fleet drifted helplessly in space. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds now floated like dead metal, their weapons silent and their engines cold. The small human fighters continued to swarm around them, but they weren't destroying the disabled vessels. They were just making sure they stayed broken. Sir, we're receiving an incoming transmission, his communication officer reported, his voice shaking. It's coming from one of the human ships. Put it on screen, Kralvex ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. The image that appeared shocked him. Instead of a primitive savage, he saw a young human woman in a clean military uniform. She had short black hair and calm, intelligent eyes. Behind her, he could see advanced computer displays and crew members working efficiently at their stations. Admiral Kralvex, the woman said in perfect Thaxian language. My name is Captain Yoon Sora of the Earth Defense Force. I think it's time we had a proper conversation. Kralvex's 4 hands clenched into fists. How do you know my name?
Ow.
Do you speak our language? Captain Yoon smiled slightly. We've been studying your empire for quite some time, Admiral. I know. We know about your conquest of the Vega colonies 3 years ago. I know. We know about your attack on the Centauri system last winter. We even know that you prefer to drink Caliph tea every morning at exactly 0700 hours. The alien admiral felt his blood turn cold. That information could only come from deep inside his own ship's records. Impossible. Oh. You're supposed to be a primitive species. Our scouts confirmed it. Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see, Yoon replied calmly. Did you really think that a species smart enough to split atoms and travel to other planets wouldn't notice when alien ships were watching them? As she spoke, more shapes began appearing in space around the Thaxian fleet. These weren't small fighters like before. These were massive human warships, each one as large as Kralvex's own flagship. They seemed to emerge from nothingness, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and weapons. Where did they come from? Kralvex whispered to his sensor operator. Don't know, sir. They just appeared. Our sensors show they were hiding behind the asteroid belt, but that's impossible. Nothing that large could hide there. Commander Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the human battleship Defiance, watching as his ship's stealth systems powered down. For 6 months, his vessel had been disguised as a large asteroid, completely invisible to alien sensors. It revealed its true form. He could see the shock on the faces of nearby Thaxian crew members through their ship windows. "All stealth units, this is Defiance," he broadcast to the other hidden human ships. "Welcome to the party. Let's show our guests what Earth engineering really looks like." Throughout the solar system, more human vessels revealed themselves. Ships that had been hiding in the rings of Saturn, bases built inside hollow asteroids, and entire fleets concealed behind the moons of Jupiter. In minutes, the Thaxian force found themselves outnumbered 3-1. "This is impossible," Kralvex muttered, staring at his tactical display. "Our intelligence said you had barely reached your own moon." Captain Yoon's image smiled on his screen. "Our public records are quite different from our actual capabilities, Admiral. While our civilian population was taking their first steps, on the moon, our military had already established bases on 17 different worlds. Major Lee Dongjun commanded one of those hidden bases, built inside a large asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. For 2 years, his people had been manufacturing weapons and ships while staying completely hidden from alien scouts. Now, as his base's massive doors opened, hundreds of fresh human fighters poured out like angry bees from a hive. "Blue Squadron, this is Asteroid Base 7, he transmitted to the new fighters. "You are cleared for combat operations. Remember, we disable first, destroy only if necessary." The fresh fighters joined the battle with precision that amazed even the Thaxian officers. Every human pilot seemed to know exactly where to go and what to do. They moved like parts of a single mind, coordinating their attacks with perfect timing. Dr. Song Min Young watched the battle from Earth's hidden command center, built deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, as the head of Earth's xenobiology research. She had been studying captured Thaxian equipment for months. Every weapon, every shield, every computer system had been taken apart and analyzed. "Captain Yoon," she transmitted to the fleet, "their remaining ships are trying to activate emergency protocols. Recommend using frequency 7.4 GHz to disrupt their backup systems." Within seconds, human jamming ships began broadcasting on that exact frequency. The few Thaxian vessels that were still fighting suddenly found their backup systems failing, just like their primary ones. "How do they know our emergency frequencies?" Kralvex asked desperately. "Those are classified at the highest levels." "We've been inside your computer networks for over a year," Captain Yoon explained patiently. "We've read your technical manuals, your battle plans, and your personal messages. We know your empire better than you do." As the last of his weapons fell silent, Admiral Kralvex finally understood the terrible truth. His mighty fleet hadn't stumbled upon a primitive world ready for conquest. They had walked into a carefully planned trap set by predators who had been watching them from the shadows. The hunters had become the hunted, and Earth was just getting started. Admiral Kralvex stared at his control screens as the last of his weapon systems went dead. Around his fleet, human ships moved with a precision that seemed impossible. They weren't acting like individual pilots anymore. They moved like parts of a single giant machine, each one knowing exactly what the others would do. "Sir, all our ships are now disabled," his tactical officer reported with a trembling voice. "But the strange thing is, none of our crew members are hurt. Their weapons seem designed to break our ships without killing us." This confused Kralvex more than anything else. In every conquest he had led, the goal was always to destroy the enemy completely. Why would these humans go through so much trouble to keep his people alive? Major Han Wuzhen sat in his fighter cockpit, guiding a group of human ships as they carefully disabled another Thaxian cruiser. His hands moved over controls that seemed to respond to his thoughts as much as his touch. Through his neural link, he could feel the presence of every other human pilot in the battle. "Razor Squadron, target the engine cooling systems on the big ship to your left," he transmitted. "Remember, we want them floating, not burning." "Copy that, Razor Lead," came the reply from Lieutenant Park G1. "These aliens build their ships tough, but they have obvious weak spots. It's like they never expected anyone to study their designs." That was exactly right. Dr. Nam Tae-young had spent 8 months analyzing every piece of Thaxian technology that Earth's agents had secretly collected. From his laboratory hidden beneath the Antarctic ice, he had discovered that alien engineering was impressive, but predictable. They used the same basic designs for everything. never changing or improving. Human engineering is different, he had explained to the military leaders months ago. We adapt, we change, we learn from every mistake. They've been using the same weapon designs for 300 years. Now, as human weapons easily penetrated shields that had protected the Thaxian Empire for centuries, his words proved true. Earth scientists had found weaknesses that the aliens didn't even know existed. Captain Yunsora opened another communication channel to the alien flagship. On her screen, Admiral Krolvex looked defeated and confused, his forearms hanging, limp at his sides. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "Why aren't you destroying us? Why keep us alive when you could easily kill us all?" Yuen's expression was patient, almost kind. "Because destruction is wasteful, Admiral. Humanity learned long ago that making enemies is much less useful than making allies. Even unwilling ones can be valuable if treated properly." "Allies," Krolvex laughed bitterly. "You've destroyed my entire fleet. How could we ever be allies?" "We haven't destroyed anything," Yun corrected him. "We've simply removed your ability to hurt us. Your ships can be repaired, your crew can go home. But first, you need to understand what you've really encountered here." As she spoke, something incredible happened. The space around Earth began to change. What had looked like empty darkness suddenly filled with lights. Massive structures became visible, hidden cities floating in space that were larger than anything in the Thaxian Empire. Commander Lee Sung-ho stood on the observation deck of Orbital City Alpha, one of 12 hidden space habitats that surrounded Earth. Each city housed over 1 million people and contained factories, farms, and research centers that had been building Earth's secret military for decades. "Stealth fields are deactivating," he announced to his crew. "Let our guests see what humanity has really been doing while they thought we were primitive." Through the windows of his disabled ship, Admiral Krolvex watched in amazement as an entire hidden civilization revealed itself. Shipyards that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, space stations that dwarfed his largest battleships, and fleets of human warships that made his once mighty armada look like toys. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How long have you been building all this?" "We started serious construction 40 years ago," Captain Yoon explained. "When our deep space telescopes first detected signs of galactic civilization, we decided it was better to be prepared and not need it than to be caught defenseless." Kim Bora piloted her fighter past one of the massive shipyards where dozens of new human warships were under construction. Each one incorporated technology that was years ahead of what the Thaxians used. Adaptive armor that could change its properties based on incoming weapons. Computer systems that learned and improved from every battle. Engines that could bend. Space itself. The funny thing is, she transmitted to her squadron, "We're not even showing them our best stuff. It's just our regular ships." That was true. Hidden in even more secret facilities throughout the solar system, human scientists had been developing weapons and ships that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Technologies that could have swept the Thaxian fleet from space in minutes, but were being held in reserve for truly dangerous enemies. Dr. Choi Hai-jin worked in one such facility. Built inside a hollowed-out asteroid near Pluto, her team had developed weapons that could disrupt the atomic bonds in enemy ships, essentially making them fall apart at the molecular level. But such weapons were only for absolute emergencies. "We showed them conventional technology," she explained to her research team. "No need to reveal what we can really do unless they force us to." As Admiral Krolvex watched more human ships emerge from hiding places throughout the solar system, he finally understood the horrible truth. Humanity hadn't been cowering on their little planet, afraid of the galaxy. They had been quietly preparing to change everything. The predators had been hunting what they thought was prey, only to discover they had cornered apex hunters. Admiral Krolvex found himself sitting in a comfortable chair aboard a human ship that was 3 times larger than his own flagship. The vessel was called the Harmony, and everything about it spoke of technology far beyond anything his empire possessed. The walls seemed to glow with their own soft light, and the air tasted cleaner than anything he had breathed in years. Captain Yunsora sat across from him at a simple table, pouring tea from an elegant pot. The drink smelled wonderful, and Krolvex realized it was Caliph tea, his favorite morning beverage. the same tea she had mentioned knowing about earlier. "How do you have this?" he asked, accepting the cup with shaking hands. "We've been trading with 17 different species for the past 12 years, Yoon explained calmly. The Vorthan merchants who supply your empire have been selling to us as well. They're quite happy to have human customers who pay in rare metals instead of conquest threats." Through the massive windows of the observation lounge, Kralvex could see construction projects that made his mind reel. Ships longer than his entire fleet put together were being built in orbital yards that stretched beyond the horizon. Space habitats housed millions of humans in comfort that exceeded the luxury of Thaxian palace worlds. Commander Song Haijin joined them at the table, carrying a datapad filled with information. As Earth's director of galactic intelligence, she had been coordinating humanity's secret expansion for over a decade. "Admiral, we've been monitoring your empire's communications for 5 years, she said, not unkindly. "We know about the rebellion brewing in your outer colonies. We know about the resource shortages that are forcing your expansion. We even know about the political problems your emperor is facing at home." Gralvek set down his teacup with trembling hands. "If you know all that, then you understand why I had to attack your world. My people need new resources to survive. You understand?" Yoon nodded. "That's why we're not angry with you personally, Admiral. You were doing what you thought was necessary for your people. But there are better ways to solve resource problems than conquest." As she spoke, a young human officer approached their table. Lieutenant Park Sajun carried with him a small device that projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy above the table surface. "Show him the Kepler project," Yoon instructed. The map changed to show a star system 200 light-years away. Kralvex could see massive mining operations extracting resources from asteroid belts and gas giants. Human ships moved between planets in carefully organized patterns, harvesting materials on a scale that dwarfed anything his empire had ever attempted. "We've been building infrastructure in 43 star systems," Park Sejon explained. "Not conquest, not colonies. Just resource extraction and processing facilities. We can produce more rare metals in 1 month than your empire mines in a year." "But how?" Kralvex asked desperately. "How did you build all this without anyone noticing?" Major Kim Jae-won stepped forward from where he had been quietly observing the conversation. As head of Earth's stealth operations, he had been responsible for keeping humanity's expansion secret from all the galactic powers. "We learned from watching your empire and others," he explained. "Every galactic civilization makes the same mistake. They assume that advanced technology means big, obvious structures. But the most advanced technology is often invisible." Gestured toward the window, where what looked like empty space suddenly shimmered and revealed another massive human ship. "Stealth technology isn't just about hiding ships, Admiral. It's about hiding entire civilizations." Dr. Lee Soo-jin, Earth's chief xenobiologist, brought up another holographic display. This one showed detailed information about dozens of alien species, including complete genetic maps and cultural analysis. "We've been studying galactic civilization for 15 years, she said. "Not just your empire, but 16 different species. We know their technologies, their cultures, their strengths, and their weaknesses. We've been preparing for the day when we would reveal ourselves." "Then why now?" Kralvex asked. "Why reveal yourselves to stop my fleet instead of remaining hidden?" Captain Yoon smiled sadly. "Because your empire was about to make a mistake that would have started a galactic war. 3 other major powers were watching your expansion with growing concern. If you had successfully conquered Earth, it would have triggered a conflict that would have destroyed billions of lives." She stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the vast human construction projects. "Humanity has been preparing for the day when we would take our place in galactic civilization. But we wanted to do it as peacemakers, not conquerors." Admiral Kralvex joined her at the window, watching as human ships departed for distant stars. Some were heading to Thaxian space, carrying supplies and medical aid for worlds that his own empire couldn't adequately support. Others were traveling to neutral systems, establishing trade relationships and diplomatic contacts. "What happens to me now?" he asked quietly. "That's your choice," Yoon replied. You can return to your Emperor with a full report of what you've discovered here. Tell him that humanity offers alliance instead of conquest, trade instead of war. Or you can stay and help us build something better than any of our civilizations have ever imagined. As Kralvex watched human vessels bringing aid to worlds his own empire had been unable to help, he began to understand that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity hadn't revealed itself to conquer or dominate. They had revealed themselves to heal and unite. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation had begun.